Hi, I'm Amy Wright, and I'm a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator with the Entira Clinic. And while we recognize that many of you are from outside areas and you're not able to come to the Entira Clinic in person, we wanted to give you the opportunity to have a healthy supermarket tour, which is something I frequently do with patients. So let's get started and we'll learn a few things about what we need to do when we go shopping. Okay, so the outline today is we want to talk about what you need to do before you shop, get to know your store's layout. We want to know about fruits and vegetables, which ones we can choose, healthy proteins, and then finally label reading. Okay, so let's get started. Before you shop, you want to make sure that you do make a list. I think that that makes a big difference because let's face it, when we shop without a list, we tend to buy things that we shouldn't. Make sure that you don't shop hungry. That's another little pro tip because if you shop hungry, you're more likely to buy impulse items, more prepared foods, more foods that are completely ready for you to grab, and they may not be the healthiest choice, so keep that in mind. And then think about the time of day. Sometimes when we shop during the day, if you shop during peak hours like 10 to 2, whatever your store tends to be busier, you want to pay attention to that because that can slow you down when you're trying to check out and get back home. And then also the other thing is to consider online shopping. That is really a game changer. It changes everything because you can sit there with your list, look at your app or look at your computer and just order your foods right away. And it saves so much time and is so helpful with controlling your budgetary expenses as well. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Store layout. That's another thing that you want to think about. Getting to know your store's layout can save you time. Every store is a little bit different. So getting to know the flow of the store and always consider in all stores, the perimeter of the store has the fruit, the vegetables, the meat, the eggs, and the dairy, and that's pretty consistent. But when you're making your shopping list, if you can make it in order of each section where you walk in the entrance, and then I'm thinking about one particular store, Brookshire Brothers, you know that the produce is right there when you come in, so that's going to be where you start your list. So just keep those types of things in mind whenever you're making your shopping list. Fruit and vegetables, you do want to check for fruit and vegetables that are in season because they do vary, and when they're in season the cost tends to be a little bit better, so that's another great thing you can look for. You can also talk to your produce manager about which ones, how to choose a fruit, like with cantaloupe and watermelon in the summertime like we're experiencing right now. So take advantage of pre-cut vegetables if needed. We know that sometimes you do need some help and you're in a hurry, and there's nothing wrong with that. But just know that it can cost a little bit more. Just kind of plan for that. But you can check online if you're shopping online, you can plan that in your budget. And then look to fresh, frozen, or canned vegetables. One thing that we know is that frozen vegetables can have just as much nutrition as fresh vegetables. So just keep that in mind. And canned vegetables are just as nutritious as well. You can just look for lower sodium vegetables if that's something that you're looking for and you're trying to control your sodium. Okay, so healthy protein. We do want to choose more chicken and fish. The Heart Association recommends that you don't choose more than 2 servings of red meat per week. That's just to limit your saturated fat. And then leaner cuts of meat, if you do choose, are loin and round cuts. So keep that in mind. And then with beef, you can choose so much lower fat now than ever before. So you just look for leaner cuts of that hamburger if you're looking for it. Or you might even choose turkey as a substitution for spaghetti sauce or different things for your family. Okay, so let's talk about reading a food label. One of the things that we do during a supermarket tour is we do practice reading a food label. And then when we do that, we go into the store and we might compare items in the store, things that you currently buy, and then maybe a healthier choice based on what you learned during a food label exercise. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at serving size and grams. Okay, so here you see in this label, the serving size is 1.5 cups and there are 4 servings in that container. So one thing that I do get frequently asked is, what is this 208 grams? Is it grams of carbohydrate? What is it? And what that is telling us is the weight of the product. So for 1.5 cups, it weighs 208 grams. And so that can be kind of confusing for patients. The other thing that's confusing for patients is this percent daily value. This is something that I frequently get asked about because patients will think, okay, well, it says it's 4 grams of total fat, and that means it's 5% total fat. And that's actually an inaccurate statement. What it means is it contains 5% of the daily value for fat as part of a 2,000 calorie diet. And that can be very confusing to patients. So what I typically do is I say, hey, let's just ignore these numbers because they really are confusing. Okay, so let's talk about calories. Here, again, that's the first thing that you see on the list. That's the most prominent bolded number is the calories. And if you are following a weight management program, that's something you want to pay attention to. I have many of my patients that have their own tracker that they have on their app, their phone. And so what they'll do is when they're eating throughout the day, they may enter in different foods while they're eating. And that really does help with keeping track of their calories and also just being more accountable with their intake. So that is something you want to pay attention to. Okay, so next is fat, okay? So a product is considered low fat if it contains 3 grams of fat per serving or less. So let's take a look at this particular product. So it says the total fat is 4 grams. So that's pretty close, so we would consider that a good choice as far as fat. And then the next thing we want to look at is sodium. We have many patients with hypertension that we want to pay attention to sodium. The recommendation for total allotment for sodium per day, according to the American Heart Association, is about 2,000 to 2,200, 2,400 milligrams of sodium per day. So you do want to pay attention to that, depending on, how hypertensive you are. But it's also just a good health practice to watch for your sodium. So low sodium would be 140 milligrams or less per serving. So let's take a look at this product. This product has 430 milligrams per serving, so that's a little on the high side. But if you're considering that throughout the day and for your whole total for the day of about 2,000 milligrams per day, it might be an okay choice, but you just want to kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so next is total carbohydrate, and this is one that, for our patients with diabetes or insulin resistance that results in prediabetes, we are watching our carbohydrates. And here you'll see total carbohydrate is 45 grams. Okay, so with that particular product, that's a little bit on the higher side, but the volume is pretty good. So for 1.5 cups, 45 grams, not too bad. You'll see that dietary fiber and total sugars are also included at that number. So when you're looking at counting carbohydrate, we kind of vary it based on what your needs are. So that would be something that we would discuss if you came into the Entira Clinic or we did a teleconnect visit. We would talk about, what are your goals? What are we trying to accomplish? And then we would set those total carbohydrate grams in line with that. Next would be added sugars, and this is something that has come up more frequently recently as people are paying more attention to carbohydrate intake and also really processed foods. Total sugars here is 4 grams, so that's actually not too bad. We do want to limit our added sugars to no more than 25 grams per day because those would be actual sugar that is added in the form of sucrose or fructose, high fructose corn syrup. Those would be things that you would be looking for in terms of ingredients, but primarily you can find that number with that total sugars on the label. So you can always pay attention to that. And if you're going out to eat, you can also check these ahead of time and see which foods might be better choices for that as well. Okay, and then finally we've got protein. That is another issue that's coming up more and more. We know that there's a lot of information out there about protein. one of the benefits is it helps our immune system, it keeps our muscles strong, but sometimes patients may need to restrict protein. Maybe they have chronic kidney disease. So there are different reasons why we would not recommend a very high protein diet for patients, but a lot of people can. So that again, that's a reason why we would want to have you come in via teleconnect or in the office, and we would discuss what your protein needs are based on what conditions or what management situation you are trying to accomplish. Okay, so protein needs on this one, the dietary protein is 11 grams, so that's really a pretty good choice. It's very high in protein, so that would be a good choice in terms of protein. Okay, so that would be our reading exercise, our label reading exercise, and we hope that that's helpful for you whenever you're doing your shopping and just knowing the different things to look for. Okay, so what we learned from our virtual supermarket tour today, we talked about before you shop, some of the things that you need to watch out for. Get to know your store's layout to save time. Which fruit and vegetables to choose, thinking about fruits that are in season, talking to your produce manager, choosing fresh, canned, or frozen. We also talked about healthy proteins and then label reading and comparison shopping. Those would all be things that we would talk about during a visit, a telehealth visit. So I hope this has been helpful for you today. If you would like to schedule an appointment, all you need to do is call the office at 936-634-1400. We hope to hear from you soon. Thanks and have a great day.